Hi, I'm Brenda.
And hi, I'm Amber.
And this is the Minority Millennial Money Podcast. The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither Amber nor I nor Minority Millennial Money is engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should seek your own advice from professional advisors, including lawyers and tax accountants, regarding the legal, tax, and financial implications of any financial decision you contemplate. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Minority Millennial Money. Today, we're very excited because we have a special guest who's a friend of Amber's. So, Amber, why don't you tell us how you guys know each other?
Yeah, so Lebryan and I met when we were both stationed in New Orleans a few years ago, and he has a really interesting story. So that's why I invited him on the podcast. But I think everyone loves our dating episodes where we talk about our dating lives and all that stuff, all the human interest stories, even though this is about money. But Lebryan has a really interesting story that is sort of the integration of money and relationships. So I'll let him talk a little bit about, what he does in his career and, how long he's been in the Army and kind of what his relationship money story is.
And I do have one more request in your introduction. If you can talk a little bit about your upbringing, your background, because we want to be relatable to people who, are minorities and maybe didn't grow up with a wealth mindset or parents that gave money or had money. So if you could offer a little bit on that too.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm Lebryan. I'm 31 years old. I'm a second generation Army brat, basically. Um, my mother did 20 years in the Army, so I grew up traveling the country. Never really been outside the country until I joined the Army myself. My mother retired, and she's doing well. She does really well for herself. Um, I have two children. I have two girls. I have an 11-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I am active duty Army paralegal. I've been a paralegal for 12 years now. And I'm a sergeant in the Army, for whatever that's worth. um,
Is that
yeah,
like a good thing? I'm
is that a
like
good thing? I mean,
totally.
it's a,
It's
I
a
mean, I don't know.
non-commissioned officer. So it's basically the
Yeah,
supervisor of the enlisted part of the Army. So there's
Okay.
enlisted and then there's officer. And so if you come right out of high school, you're enlisted. But if you come in with a college degree, then you're an officer. So since Lebryan came right out of high school, he's enlisted. So he's like the supervisor of the enlisted. So it's a
Gotcha.
high rank.
So it's management.
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, management, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I went to high school and joined the Army fresh out of high school, and I've been doing the Army thing for about 12 years now.
So can you tell us how much you make? Because I think that's important to the story.
So how much I make now? Right now, I make roughly 90 to $100,000.
Net
Obviously,
income,
don't net
not
income.
gross.
Yes, you're right. Not
Oh,
gross,
90
right?
to 100 take home.
Take
Yeah.
home.
Wow. And what was my question related to that? Did you become a paralegal in the Army?
So I should probably delve into that, right? So it's not so the Army basically trained me to be a paralegal and for Army specific problems, all right? I don't necessarily have a paralegal certification. It's relatable, and we have a degree program, but I'm not interested in being a paralegal outside the military. So
So you joined the Army with no prior experience of being a paralegal. You joined right out of high school. You said, I want to be a paralegal in the Army, and the Army trained you and paid to train you themselves.
correct.
And did you go into the Army because your mom was and it's kind of like a family thing? Or was it like you didn't want to go to college? What was the situation?
So a little bit of both. My uncle was in the Navy, and my mom was in the Army. I saw the success that she had specifically towards the end of her career, and I wanted to emulate that. I didn't really. asked me to elaborate on my family situation a little bit. I actually grew up with just my mom, and about 13 years later, a brother. There was a stepdad there for a while. He's a good guy. I still keep in contact with him and stuff like that. But for the most part, I didn't really have a lot of positive male role models, you know. So that's actually, I'm gonna delve into that a little bit later. But
Yeah.
so yeah, so you know, just growing up with just my mom and seeing the success that she had, you know, the struggles that she had and that she overcame. I think the military definitely had a lot to do with that. So
Okay.
So when we were in New
yeah.
Orleans, to dive into this story a little bit, right? You had a relationship.
Mhm.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure.
I
So
introduced it.
yeah, so and that's actually great to like why we're having this conversation, right? So I was poor relationship choices, right? I was in a relationship with a young lady. You know, she was very beautiful and all that good stuff, right? The lesser important things, but the you know, I don't want to drag her on the internet, but like basically, you know, she had some situations, some traumas and stuff like that that really were toxic to me as somebody who was trying to, you know, progress and stuff like that. So um she had 6 children at the time. And you know, I wanted love to conquer all and all that other nonsense. And you know, I took all that on. And
Took it on,
honestly,
meaning you let her and 6 children move into you while you paid for them as a sole provider.
I did. I did. And
You had 6 children?
I had 6, well, 7 to include my own. And
Wow.
we'll, you know, there's a little pun there. We'll address that one later as well.
So just to go back, because I know this story, right? So you had a daughter already by a different woman, and you had that daughter, and then you met this other woman with 6 children who moved in with you with her 6 kids. Your daughter was elsewhere with her mom, and so you were caring for these 6 children, but also still paying child support for your other child.
Correct.
So in total, you were taking care of a girlfriend and 7 children at that time.
Yeah.
So you have a really big heart, but it has
I
done you wrong.
know it's a character flaw, you know. It is definitely a character flaw.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Keep telling.
So you've been
But
making
yeah,
a lot of
so
money in the Army. And then, so like, what was your net worth at the time where you were sort of in the midst of this relationship with the woman with 6 kids?
oh, at that particular time, probably like $5,000, something like that. Like literally. I mean, prior to that, I had just come from a tour in Korea, where I am currently. And I saved up a whole bunch of money, and just basically throughout that relationship, particularly at the beginning, we had some moving issues, and you know, kids need this and that, and you know, vehicles, paying for vehicle repairs and a whole bunch of other weird stuff. You know, a lot of that savings like went away, you know, because of emergencies and stuff like that. And at that particular time, I had like zero concept of investments or how to like grow money or anything like that. So yeah, prior to that, I mean, I don't really have an estimate, maybe upward 20,000 or something like that. Maybe well, I'll say low 20,000, something like that. But by the time like we were in the thick of things and towards the end of things, I had like nothing. I was living paycheck to paycheck and stuff like that. So
Mm.
What do you think? So I know that's not where it ends, right?
right, of course
And
not.
so I guess, like, what do you think about that situation? And like, what were your thoughts about money in the relationships at that time? Or like, what would you want to tell someone about that situation?
Well, up front, you know, like I was just saying to Brenda, it's a character flaw, right? Up front, I would just say like to identify those things about yourself that could be detrimental to you. You know what I'm saying? Like on the front end, so that you don't fall into these traps, make these like basically you don't have uncomfortable conversations, and you know, make decisions that are in your best interest and not necessarily follow what you feel. You know what I mean? Like think with your brain and not with your heart. So, you know, there's that, right? That'll
That's
present a
so
lot of things. So
cold.
it's true though. It's true. I mean, just like I mean, think about it, right? The way that like women approach relationships, they definitely think about men's financial capabilities and stuff like that. I mean, it's
I
roughly
would
similar.
never.
So I mean, it's completely understandable. But when it's what I learned from that relationship really was that, like, relationships, marriages, and stuff like that is like almost like a business decision in a way. Like it's like combining assets, and if that person doesn't really have anything, which is also a theme that we're going to discuss a little bit later, uh, they don't really have anything to lose. So when they are on their way out, they're doing stuff.
I think it's an interesting concept because I know I've talked a lot about this. Like we've talked about this, is just like people tend to pick people who they are entertained by or that they have fun with as like their mate versus, choosing somebody who's like more practical. And so I think that like a lot of people like the really charming people who are very extroverted and are like the life of the party. But looking down the line where you're trying to figure out who you can raise kids with or who you can realistically be in a long-term sustainable relationship, I think those factors tend to change. And I think that's why a lot of relationships or marriages end up not working out because of that reason. I mean, would you say that that was the case with you?
Yeah, and I was the one that ended that relationship. I mean, at some point it got to be too much for me. I started noticing myself changing, and I looked at where I was versus where I was previously versus where I was at that point, and it just didn't compute. You know. So me and the young lady ended up having our own child on the tail end of that relationship. I left. Well, she left, but she left like my place, went back to where she lived on the other side of the country, and informed me that she was pregnant after the fact. And now we have a beautiful daughter, 7. So
Her 7th baby.
yes, and her name is 7. So cute. She's a joy. But yeah, so but yeah, she's 1, and I forgot what's going with that.
So you have, at this point, you have this woman with the 6 kids, you have your daughter from the previous relationship, and now you have the new daughter, 7.
Correct. So woman with the 6 children, she leaves, 7's born. Uh, obviously we were together for about a year and a half, close to 2 years. And prior to that, I knew her for a really long time. I've known her since, like, was it 2013? Yeah, 2013 or something like that. It's now almost 10 years, close to it, basically. And I was there, throughout some of her hardship with her children and stuff like that. I, for lack of a better word, helped raise her children in certain periods of time. Really got involved. I got into coaching because of her kids. I was at parent teacher conferences. I was, doing all that good stuff. So, I really have a connection with the children and stuff like that. Again, their character flaw, their character flaw, right? Now, after, trying to separate, what to do and what not to do when it comes to, having a child with a woman that has other children, particularly other children that you're fond of. And I'm sure she knows about my character flaw of being generous and kind and stuff like that. So creating that dynamic where I don't have to feel bad about not giving to other children and not providing for the other children versus just providing for my own. A lot of times I don't really know what that looks like, to be honest. I pay my child support on the front end, and then, like, if my child needs something, like, I don't want to be cold and be like, oh no, I don't give pass beyond that point, because it's, if I have it to give, then especially if it's going towards my kid. But a lot of times you don't really know. You have no idea. So
you have no
also
idea. You're saying you have no idea if the money she's requesting additional to child support is actually going to your child who's basically a newborn when she's 1, a toddler,
correct.
Or if it's going to the other 6 children that she has.
Correct.
Well, that's the risk you run when you have a child with someone who has other children, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and part of me
is her 7th.
correct.
Yes. The 11-year-old that you have.
No, my 11-year-old. That's from like high school.
Okay.
High school nonsense.
So
Okay.
the high school relationship, how much child support do you pay for that child?
$500 a month.
And then you
much.
now are taking, so 7, then how much is that child support?
$450, so $500 a month, basically.
And then plus any
950
additional
and
funds that she needs for the other kids too, right? Because you're saying she asked you to help with,
I mean, she asked, but again, boundaries, right? Understanding myself and depending on what it is, I'm a generous guy. I can't help it. But
Because you
you
guys
know,
aren't there together anymore. How long have you been
no.
apart?
We were apart starting November of 2019.
Okay, so it's been a couple years that you've been apart.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically her entire pregnancy and my daughter's 1, so just under 2 years.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So in the interim of this, there's another relationship, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit more than a relationship.
Women, am I right?
Yeah, no, that's my Achilles heel, So
Why don't I find these men?
because they're
so
not
the
making
other
6 figures, Brenda.
Do what?
I said because they're not making 6 figures, Brenda.
Exactly.
So so the other relationship is um I don't know, I don't even know how to approach this. So the other relationship happened in the interim. I basically didn't allow myself a lot of time to heal and, not necessarily rush into things, but I just made like a poor decision in vetting the person that I decided to enter a marriage with. So I got
So
married
just to
in the
be
interim.
clear, in the interim, while 7 is being made, you enter into a marriage.
Yes, while 7 is in the oven, correct.
Yes.
Yes, towards the tail end, yeah. Seemed like a good idea at the time. It was a great idea at the time.
The time. You were so in love.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so we got kind of a good recap. I wanna keep it positive, and I
Mm.
want you to tell us what you've learned, right? Like, you clearly have a lot of self-awareness about your Achilles heel and the fact that perhaps your relationships have been in those in which you've been taken advantage of. I think,
Mm.
but what have you learned?
Basically, they're not allowed that for sure. I mean, like you said, I'm cold. I mean, Amber and I, we talk, and you'd be surprised at some of the things that I say. I mean, I'm a totally different person now. I don't want to be like callous and like ridiculous at this point. Like go off the deep end. Like I don't want to be like Kevin
Kevin Samuels.
but I
I don't know who that
do
is.
but I do
You don't want
have
to know.
yeah but I have made changes, you know what I'm saying, about how like I approach things like societal norms that I just choose not to participate in anymore. And it really causes problems necessarily, but it allows me to like weed out, women that I otherwise wouldn't want to deal with. Currently not looking to be seriously romantically involved with anybody, but I mean, I'm a 31-year-old man, female interaction is a must at some point. It just is like, it's just facts, but so when engaged, yeah, so like when engaging women, um like I'll give you a good example, right? um Drink culture, buying women drinks, or doing things financially for women who have frankly done nothing for me. It doesn't make sense. And
Yeah.
it helps me weed out women that like are really like have this warped reality of like what things should be. You know what I'm saying? Just based off of like
Yeah.
society, like again, societal norms versus people who are actually grounded in like have an idea of like, what equality or equity looks like.
And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've noticed this about Black culture is that a lot of Black women, and Amber is not like this, but um, expect to be taken care of. And maybe Hispanic women do too, just not the ones I hang out with. But like I've known of relationships in which the woman moved in with the guy. She did not pay rent. She had a lot of her emergency stuff paid for. She got on his health insurance, even though they weren't married. He paid her phone bill. He paid some of her bills. And I was like, how do you do that? You know, I mean, I would not in good conscience be able to ask someone to do that for me. But yeah, the norm for her was that that was a normal part of a relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, I just like to say none of these women are Black that he's talking about.
No, Seven's mother
One
is
of them
Black.
is Black, but
Yeah,
the
one
other
of them
ones
is
are
Black.
not Black.
Other ones.
So I don't know if that's specific to Black women, but
Okay,
there
okay.
are women out there like that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and maybe you need to have that kind of filter, right? Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. Because you know now what that looks like, and it's not been good for you financially. So, and I personally would feel bad if I was taking so much, right? It's like,
Yeah.
well, I worked really hard to not have to do that. So,
Oh yeah, definitely start putting those things into perspective. Like I literally start to think about like how many hours that I have to work in order to make the money to comply with whatever requests, and I'm just like, yeah, that don't make sense. You know what I mean? And
right.
just drawing the line right there.
But I forgot, I cut you off kind of at drink culture. Like, do you mean like when you're just going out, like trying to
Mhm.
impress a woman, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So like, let's say like there's a woman and like one of her friends or something like that. And I'm talking to her for a while. Or let's say there's a woman and there's a female bartender, and I've been talking to the girl for a while, and the bartender's like, "Why don't you buy her a drink?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll buy her one when she buys me one." You know what I mean? Like that's the type of stuff that like happens. You know what I mean? And rather than just complying, I was like, "Yeah, sure, we can do an even exchange or something like that. Even if your drink costs more than my drink, that's fine. But it's just a gesture, the idea that you would pay and I would also pay. It goes a long way.
So you want the woman to have some skin in the game.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
I think that's a good example. I mean, like the broader, I don't think really it's about buying drinks or anything like that. I think it's more
Yeah.
so like you, and we've talked about this before, like you want to date somebody who has something to lose.
For sure.
And I know you didn't talk a lot about your recent marriage, but that was one of the issues. If you want to talk a little bit about that, like, how you might choose better or that situation.
Yeah, so I mean, you kind of summed it up by saying dating someone who has nothing to lose because when they basically people will like leverage your success against you. They'll use information that they have against you that will be detrimental, whether it be for your job or whether it be information they have access to on electronic devices or passwords they may have. Like when people don't really have anything to lose, they tend to leverage the things that you have to lose against you. And in my recent situation, that basically happened. Um, in my ever bleeding heart, doing things for my wife, you know what I'm saying? And basically it came back to bite me, whereas you know, I'm not gonna really talk about the situation because it's active, but not that I don't mind sharing, but it's active, so I'm not gonna talk about it. But long story short, I put myself in positions to basically mess up what I had going on, and I'm not may not be the one actively doing it. It may be that person, but again, the situation is a situation I created. You know, where I basically am in a position to lose things that I worked for, and that person just kind of fell in on it. You know what I mean? So, one thing that I learned about that situation was that when you give or when you mess with somebody like that, like they don't appreciate the things that you have because they didn't have to work to earn it. You know what I mean? So just think about something that you got for free versus something that you actually worked. worked for, you know.
So you're talking about like your personal property or,
Yeah,
you know,
personal
that,
property or just like things in general, you know. Like let's say you had like a watch, right? Something that was like handed down to you or given to you versus something that you like really wanted in the store and you went to go buy it. Like you know, you're gonna look at one like not like it's less than or anything like that, but just like you're probably gonna favor the other one because you literally worked for it, you know.
so after dealing with all that, what would you say your net worth is now? Um, after all of that.
So about a month ago, my net worth was significantly higher than it is now. Had to had to gotta pay to play, you know. But now I would say my net worth is about 40,000.
So you had more than that, and due to the marriage, the money was drained, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
So what would you say to a young 18-year-old boy who, getting into
Like women.
relationships? Yes. What is your
yeah.
advice, I guess?
Well, I would just say, women are gonna come and go in your life, and like you should definitely focus on your money, your your future as a person, as a man. Like, what do you want to do? Um, I know like the stereotypical advice is to accomplish everything that you have to accomplish and blah blah blah. Like it doesn't always work like that, but you should definitely be well off and well on your way to that future that you see yourself in, before deciding to settle down with somebody and making sure that that person's goals and moral and character um, aligns with what you have going on, and that shouldn't even be considered until you're about 30, 31. Like honestly, it just doesn't really make sense. I mean, there are people that are the exception to the rule, of course, the high school sweethearts and stuff like that. But I mean, typically, you should go get your money first and decide what you think that your life should look like in the future. I mean, I don't think anybody really wants to raise children remotely, or participate in the back and forth game where the kid lives here and kid lives there. Like, our kids don't even, that's not even good for kids. Decide, how you want to raise your kids, how what kind of schools you want to send them to, and see what that costs, and then go out and you know make that money in order to provide your kids and your family the life that you know the life that they deserve.
I do want to, oh, go ahead, Amber.
No, go ahead, Ren.
Well, I just want to highlight the fact that despite all of this, 40,000 is still a good nest egg. You're only 31. This can grow. You're not going to make similar mistakes in the future. And you have had a significant amount of stability being in the military, right? That has provided a really good, I mean, there were probably times, what you said, you were living paycheck to paycheck, but you had a paycheck, right? And that's not something that everyone can say. So I think we've had some pushback sometimes because we talked about the military on another episode. And I just want to highlight the fact that it's still a very good option, and you're still active duty, you're making a good amount of money. If you really get, aggressive and organized about the way you invest, you're still fine, and you're going to be able to
Of course.
retire in what, another 10 years?
8.
No, actually 8. Yeah, 8.
Yeah, and
Less than 10. Start a whole new career.
you're not even going to be 40. You'll be retired and you'll get to start a whole new career. Exactly. So, I don't know, there's something to be said for that, right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
in
for
a
sure.
way, the military afforded you all of these mistakes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
basically.
know?
Yeah.
That's a good way to look at it. I think, when we were younger, I think I heard a lot of adults say like, don't get into relationships until, after you finish school or after you've done this or that. And I really dislike that advice. And I know you touched on that a little bit, like you're saying, like your advice is to tell young men, like, don't do this until you have money. I think though that the advice should be that like, you need to learn how to balance having a job, making money, building your net worth whilst being in a relationship and like what relationships to choose while you're doing that. Like, it sounds like the women that you're describing from the high school relationship on down, and maybe because I know a little bit more of the backstory, it's like these are women who aren't necessarily trying to build a career. None of them were in the Army. None of them had stable jobs. We're talking about people who you were their come up. And
well, they're at least they're attempted to come up.
They came up, right? Like if I have 6 kids and this is no shade, but if I have 6 kids, if I have 6 kids and I find a man who is making $100,000, who's taking care of me, putting my kids in athletics, I came up, even if it's just for a few years. And then if I have a baby by that man who's got to pay me $500 a month forever, I came up. You know, and that's not to say anything about you. I'm just saying that like, this is a come up for them. And so I meet a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't want to date a lawyer. I don't want to date a doctor. Like, I want to date a McDonald's cashier. I don't care if she's a McDonald's cashier. That's what's wrong with women. They always want men who make money, but I'm okay dating a McDonald's cashier. Great. Let me know how that works for you. Because it sounds like it doesn't work. It sounds like they want your money, because I don't want anybody's money, right? Like if somebody has 100K, great. Me too. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's definitely a unique perspective, you know, when you have money as a woman and dating men. But I think that traditionally, for sure.
It's way harder when you're a high income earning woman, because I'm like, listen, I don't need you.
Yes. Yes.
Oh God.
Yes.
Oh God.
Ryan's rolling his eyes.
Snap.
No, because it's like, what do you? Okay. Oh yeah. I'm gonna leave that one alone. You know, Amber and I, we have they really off camera. but no, I get it. I get it.
It's true. I mean, the traditional dynamics are now thrown off by the fact that women can earn money and sometimes earn more than men. And I've never had a successful relationship in which the man has made less than me.
Yep.
Because I have been okay with it, but they have not.
Agreed.
And you know, and part of me is like, well, I'm sorry, that's how it is. And on the other hand, whenever there is an issue, I don't have to stay, right? Like you don't get me status. Marriage used to be a way for a woman to have a place in society,
yep,
to have something to do, to
yep,
have children.
Yep.
And we don't have to do that anymore. And I'm not lecturing you. I'm just saying it makes life and relationships a little bit more complicated as women. And Amber and I will both get prenups anyway. So
yeah. Exactly. But I guess, Lebryan, I guess the question to you is like, why haven't you dated someone, for example, in the Army? Like, why haven't you dated somebody who makes money? Like, why did you choose women who were not doing much?
I have dated women that make money. I guess at the end of the day, like for whatever reason, it didn't work out. Like it didn't become a serious relationship. I don't think the money part was the part, or what was the problem. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I mean, I think that you may have said this. I don't know if this is a prior conversation or something that you said on the podcast, but I think that I may have just chosen based off of like, you know, how much fun I was having with this person, or you know, like the silly stuff, not necessarily like compatibility or character, or the things that actually matter. And you know, these are things that I learned, and you know, I know that now. But
yeah, and you'll use those lessons learned going forward.
Yeah.
So that was probably the major lesson that you would pass on to younger men.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But for people who are rich in character, you know, and are going somewhere, you know, have goals for themselves.
Right. Yeah. I've had friends who have had relationships which are really good emotionally, and the man has not made as much money as her, And she was like, well, that's okay, but like, what are you doing, right, to improve that? Because you're like at a third of what I make. And so,
Whew,
woo,
that hurt.
So I mean, what I not even because I make less money or anything like that, but I think that some certain relationships work for certain people. Like I know a couple different people, particularly in the army, where either the woman is in the army and the man follows her around, or the woman makes more money than the man, and the man not necessarily follows her around, but I mean those relationship dynamics work for them. They're in
mhm,
actual
mhm.
marriages. You know,
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know. I don't
different.
want
I
to say
think
that.
an army marriage is really different though, because as you know, as we both know, when you travel for the army, the other person basically can't work unless they're in the army. So unless you date somebody else in the army or in one of the other
Mm,
military facilities, it is very hard for somebody who is a civilian to find work at every single base every two
true.
years.
Yeah, that is true. I
So
agree with
a
that.
lot of the times when you're in the army, like that is the only relationship that'll work. And the army provides stability because 100% of your healthcare is paid for. You know, you always get a food stipend. Some soldiers get food stamps in addition to their military salaries. And so there's an extra added benefits of being a military wife of like, it's kind of one of those 1950s marriages, really, where it's like, well, what am I going to do? I'm in Germany with this guy. I can't, what if I divorce him? How am I going to get back to the US? I'm stuck here, you know?
Right.
So in that way, the military has created this situation where it's still sort of back in the past and people are stuck there. So that's why the marriages tend to work. I mean, who's going to give up their free healthcare and, you know, free food and access to military base and school and education for free and their spouse's 100K salary? Not many people,
I
probably.
mean, yeah. I mean, I guess maybe I'm thinking of like an anecdotal example where, we're talking about somebody who has like a woman who has money and the man, I don't know his situation exactly, but the man goes with the woman and like I said, their relationship works, you know.
Yeah. I
Money
mean,
is definitely important. It's definitely
non-traditional.
number one or two, in the when it comes to relationships and finding people, but I don't I don't know. I don't know if it's just like it should be just like the number one, like where the deciding factor, the line in the sand. Like, does the guy just have to have more money than you? If you
Yes.
have, I mean, I guess, yeah,
Or the same
yeah.
amount.
No. Now for me, I don't mind if they make less than me.
How much less?
I would say 25% is okay.
20.
Like if
Okay.
I made 100, he could make 75 or more.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah. 15 to 20K is not that much. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Splitting hairs.
but yeah, but if I'm making 200 and he's making 40,
No.
Yeah.
well then there's a lifestyle adjustment at that point, right? Like there's a lifestyle I want to live if I'm making 200 and you're just not going to be able to keep up. I mean, and like currently I'm planning a trip with my current partner, and the good thing is that I have the expensive taste and he has a little bit more money.
Because you're in school.
Yeah, because I'm in school. But something that is also good in relationships is that he's not good at spending money to enjoy things. He's got this very Midwestern attitude, like, oh, can't spend too much. And I'm like, you work really hard and you make good money. Like, let's stay at a nice place, You could die next year. Like, there could be a new strain of COVID and
Yeah.
or something, and we're what are we saving for? I mean, obviously you save and invest for your future and the rest you should enjoy. And so
Yeah.
I think that's a good balance, right? To find someone who isn't taking advantage of you, because I'm not taking advantage of him. I am contributing, but I do have to push him a little bit and be like, we can go to 5-star places.
It honestly hurts to stay in a 3-star. Like I really feel uncomfortable. And I'm not good.
Amber's so bougie.
Yeah, I am. Why am I
I
at a
sleep on the
comfort
floor in
inn?
the airport. I think, the whole army piece, not that I'm just this pinnacle of masculinity or anything like that,
Oh
but
God.
I love
Spare
it.
me.
I love it.
Spare
No,
me.
but seriously, I mean, what you say, austere conditions, right?
Austere
Just
conditions,
those,
and I'm willing
yeah,
to stay in them when I'm in the army, but I ain't in the army all the time.
yeah, hey, well, I am. So
So, I
austere to
mean, for
me and
you, it
to
would
you are two
be
different things.
for you, it'd be even nicer to treat yourself, right? Because most
Yeah,
of your lodging and stuff is like pretty,
subpar.
call it
He
clean.
when
stays in
I,
nice
yeah, when I'm,
places.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, when I'm in the States, when I'm in Korea, if I want to stay somewhere nice, I gotta go there. I gotta pay for it. So
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, anything else you want to share, Lebryan?
Um, no, not really. I mean, yeah, you guys have any additional questions? Probably ask you guys that.
I think thank you for being so open and honest and vulnerable. These are hard things to talk about,
I was mentally
but
prepared.
you have but
Nothing
you have,
vulnerable about it.
I mean, at the end of the day, you got 8 more years in the military. You're going to have military pension. You can grow whatever wealth you can accumulate between now and then and still find a good partner.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is it? Haven't hit my stride is what I like to say. I got.
There you go.
I mean, even in late 30s, 40s. I mean, I don't. I think that I can still. Well, I know that I can still be marketable and stuff like that. There's no worries. I got mad time.
Amber and I are very aware that men take a long time to grow.
I don't think we take a long time to grow. I think we take a long time to make decisions on love interest, and because we are afforded that time.
Right.
You know,
No clock for
yeah,
you.
yeah.
You're somewhat
Blessings.
afforded it. You can miss out. Isn't there a Drake lyric
Yeah,
about that?
certainly.
Something.
So I've done
There
so many
what?
Drake lyrics since we've been.
A Drake lyric. It's like, I don't know. Forgot.
The good ones go.
Yes, that's what it
Yeah.
is. That's what it is.
If you wait too long.
Yes, precisely.
It's true.
All right.
So
Well,
much.
yeah. Thanks everyone
Well,
for listening.
thanks for having
Take
me,
care.
Amber and Brenda. Appreciate you.
Bye.